Welcome everyone to Thursday, 1 o'clock. It's here at fmtraining.tv where we teach you all sorts of awesome things about the FileMaker platform. We just finished up a 3-day set of learning how to do API stuff. And really you can't do it justice. If you were going to really learn APIs, you'd probably need 3 days all day and intensive in-classroom training. But it's a pretty good start with what we gave you. So if you want to... we will make sure we find the links for you. In fact, that brings up a good point. We probably should call David Castillo. Where can we find David Castillo at? David Castillo. Can we find this guy? Where is he at? There, we call him real quick. Doot, doot, doot. He's supposed to play air traffic control with us today. We'll see if he actually is there. Hey, David, this is...
hey.
Whoa, you're loud. All right, turn you down a little bit. All right, so you're live on TV with everyone else here, and you're going to be our ace assistant today. I tried to get some of the folks in the... with our coaching team to do it, but they decided that a guy who's not really a FileMaker guy would be the assistant. So for everyone who wants to know this, the coaches elected to have David play a Q&A answer person. David is one of our video editors, so he actually has learned FileMaker just by watching all the videos that we produce and editing them together. It's kind of funny, but if you actually watch my videos over and over and over for a couple of years, you suddenly become a senior engineer. It's really kind of funny. So today is going to be a much more basic day. So let me cover a couple housekeeping notes. Once again, I've already mentioned we are broadcasting live on 1080. If you're interested in knowing what the upcoming schedule is, you're going to go to fmtraining.tv. I'm going to put you down here out of the way, fmtraining.tv. And then you press the live tab, and this is the upcoming schedule. Today is part 1. Tomorrow is kind of part 2. We can dig a little deeper if you want into the digital document management. Important, something totally new that none of you know about. And that is that Claris, we used to call him FileMaker. I keep doing that during the broadcast. They have asked, hey, are people watching this? And I go, yeah, people are watching this. And they go, well, how do you prove that? And I'm like, well, it does show the viewers and stuff, right? And so they said, well, it'd be better if they would tell us that they watched it, like, do this review thing. And I was laughing about it. I'm like, so it'd be helpful to Claris to know that you were watching it. So here's what we've got. First off, I want to say today's conversation is definitely in this level here from brand new to intermediate. So it's good content. If you're a very senior guy like Art Savea, the API guy probably doesn't need this conversation. He probably already knows it. But if you're new to the platform, this is going to be good stuff for you. That's one thing. The second thing, more important, you haven't seen this before, is if you could post a review, and I'm going to ask you to do this like once a week if you can, and it's like a couple, 2, 3, 4 sentences, whatever you want to do, and tell Claris what you thought. How did this training help you with FileMaker? I think it's important that you use the word FileMaker in there, otherwise they might think you're talking about something else. But tell us what you need with that. Now, to do the review, you need to have a Google account. Most everyone has a Google account, like most people have an Amazon account. And so you'll need to have that. So if you press that or go to that link, it is case sensitive, but it's HTTPS. David, if you could copy and paste that into both Twitch and YouTube, that would be great. That would be useful for these folks. And then, yeah, pretty awesome now. All right, cool. So anyway, there's the review site. So feel free to do that. If you're bored in the middle of the session, you want to go in there and write some stuff, feel free. Try to be constructive. If you have good things to say, that's great. If you have how to make it better, that would be great. Understand that Claris will see this stuff, so try not to be too mean to me. All right, especially given what we're paying for the training, right? So moving along, today's topic is digital document management. So what is digital document management? So the idea is that if you're in a FileMaker solution, and I'm going to open up I'm going to start a brand new file. I'm going to say, come under File. I'm going to say Create New. We are currently in FileMaker 18. If I go over here to the context file, this is a very basic FileMaker file. It's going to save it to the desktop. And so we have one record in here. And of course, if I put, my name in here, I say Richard and Carlton, for example. And then what ends up happening is that people get to a point, obviously sticking a photo in FileMaker is something that's, everyone gets that it can do that, right? And so if I open this up over here, we'll get a picture of myself. There I am right there, fluffy kitty. And so what's important to understand is that FileMaker, and my face is now off the, whoa, hang on there. There we go, much better. What's important to understand is that FileMaker doesn't differentiate between an image. Really, at the end of the day, and I understand some of you argue with me about this, and we'll get into this, but FileMaker then doesn't care what it is. It knows it's text, a text field, a number field, a date field, a calculation field, which is one of those. It can be a global field, which is just the way it's stored, or it can be a container field. So FileMaker doesn't care what it is as long as it knows it goes into a container. So a Word file, PDF, photo of a cat, a QuickTime movie or some sort of movie of some type. And so what's important to understand is that FileMaker has had the ability to do digital document management since the very beginning. They've had containers since FileMaker Pro 2. The problem is that the containers, the idea these days is that people want to actually have contracts and manage things like that. So if I go to layout, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, I'm going to go to layout mode, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. It's probably set to slide. So what all these things probably auto size to get bigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all, and I'm going to turn off the sliding to the right, so it doesn't stretch right or expand to the right. So if I go to browse mode, then the idea is that I create this space over here. Otherwise, as you make it bigger, it'll just stretch those fields out, right? So if I'm in once again, layout mode versus browse mode. I know there's some people here who are brand new, so when you're in FileMaker and you're building on the layout, you're going to go to layout mode. It's Command or Control L. I use my keyboard shortcut, my fingers. You're going to go to View. You'll say layout mode versus browse mode, which is really user mode. The users are using it as opposed to building it mode. So you could call this build it mode and user mode. Find is when you're doing a search. Preview doesn't get used a lot anymore. There's rare times where it's useful. So I'm going to go back to layout mode. And what I want to do is I want to put some a couple documents in here so we can manage some documents, right? And that's the idea. So I'm going to go to field definitions here. I'm going to go to file. And in the future, I'll do keyboard shortcut, but I'm going to go file, manage, database, and then I see that I have a list of tables here, and we'll just go into, let's just say that this is a contact, and say that we have a contract with this contact. Now, a lot of times you'd have a project or something, you could wire it that way. This is not about building a CRM so much. What it is about, though, is just putting some containers in here and then working through the management of those. And then if you have questions, feel free to throw them up because we are going to take questions in flight. So cool. So I'm going to go ahead and go back here to, I'm going to select the contacts table, and I'm going to say document 1. The name doesn't matter. The name doesn't matter at all here. I'm going to say make it a calculation over here, and calculation, container right there. I'm going to say create, and I'm going to create a second one for giggles, and then I'll create a third one. Now, initially, the way I've created these here is kind of the way that they have been historically in FileMaker, but FileMaker does two things. Since about FileMaker 12, they've done about two things to improve the performance. So what I've got is I got these documents over here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm using my Shift key or Command key. So when you're selecting things in FileMaker, if you just use your mouse, everything that your little box there, your selector box, everything it touches gets activated. That's kind of a new behavior in FileMaker. And January, February, March, April. Yeah, so tomorrow I think is May 1st. Tomorrow is 30 years for me doing this. The reason it's relevant is that when FileMaker teaches you to do something for like 15 years and then they change how it works, it causes your brain to want to explode. And so in the old days, you would select this, and only items that were completely contained in the box would be separated. So this is if it touches, it activates. See, it touches it, touches it, touches it. But I frequently use a modifier key. I think it's the Command or Control key. It makes the box dark. And that means that the item that I want has to be completely selected in it. So I have to completely see that? That's pretty cool. And so I use this a lot. Unless I have a hard time reaching something, then I'll use the other. So I select that. I'm going to bring it up over here so we don't have to scroll around. I'll put it like this. I'll say document 1, and then just make this easy. I'll just put a 2 here so you know this is the 2, and this is 3. This is beyond ugly, but it is going to be functional. All right, so over here are these container fields. So what's important to understand, is a couple things. I just defined the containers. I didn't set any preferences at all. Let's just see what it does. So here is a PDF from FileMaker 18. And so it sticks it in there. Oh, and it makes a thumbnail. Okay. And what's interesting about this is digital document management. There's some important things to understand. FileMaker does I consider two important things. It does more than that, but two important things to make it go fast. The problem is that when you start sticking documents into a file, it becomes unmanageable. The performance can become unmanageable. The file can get really, really fat. It's like if I ate every possible ho-ho and Twinkie. Back years ago, I was a giant guy. Now I'm kind of like a medium-sized guy, but I'm a third the weight that I used to be. I'm much lighter. And so basically the idea is that instead of having a really, really large FileMaker file, because then when it backs up, it's harder for it to back up, and it's harder for it to do searches and manage the data and dig out. Because remember, as it's saving the file, it's in this big file, and say it's gigabytes of file in here, there's going to be text data, then there'll be a container and text data and container, and it'll be mishmash. So as it's looking for text, it has to jump around in that giant file. That slows it down, especially if you have it on the server and you're connected across the internet. Very important. So what FileMaker does, it does two things. One is that you have the option to have the container saved external. Okay, so right now, let's just talk about saving the containers externally. Okay, let's just work on that. So I have, if I come over here, where's my file? Let me get rid of my face here. Let me put that over there. Okay, here's my file here. Okay, and let's just take a look at the file size. So I'm gonna click on it. I'm gonna say Command I to get info. It says it's 5.3 megabytes. Okay, I can tell you that megabytes are from Mr. Fluffy Kitty and this PDF over here. But just to verify that, let's put in the video from yesterday towards the end of the session. We had the video yesterday. Whoa, I'm getting really large. Can I make myself smaller? There we go. Right down here. So here I am. So we had this video yesterday, which is from the Aliens movie from 1979, which is still one of the more scary movies out there. And it is where they're blowing up the starship because they think the alien's on the ship and they want to kill the alien. So here is a video that could be any sort of video. It's pretty large. I drag and drop it in here. And so this is what we have right here. This video is 82 megabytes. Now, if I go ahead and close it up, close the file so I know it's closed, I know it saved it, I can come over here to the file size. Notice now it's updated. It's up to 117 megabytes. So we've got already a fat file, and we haven't even really tried yet to do much with it. And so this file, listen, 100 megabytes, 200 megabytes is not a lot. But when you start trying to do a lot of work with it over the internet and it turns into gigabytes, for example, I have a radio control airplane solution. And I fly, I don't know, about once a week right now. I don't fly that often, but if I go to hosts, I go to one of my servers, and if I can even get into it, I don't even know if I can get into it over here. It's called Plane Commander. See if it'll let me in. Ha! I don't even know if it'll let me in. Let me see if I can get into this. No. See if I can get into it. I can't remember my password. Oh, I'm into it. Okay. So this is called Plane Commander. And what these are, this is a, because I used to compete, and I was actually a sponsored pilot by a manufacturer. The manufacturer would pay me to go fly the aircraft and demonstrate their stuff for them. And so what we would do is you would have aircraft in here where you would have various images and PR shots and things like that. Let me go to find one that has pictures in here, or none of the pictures going to show up. Let me see here. Hello. There should be photos in here somewhere. Or is it not going to work at all and my demo is broken? I have to figure it out. I wonder if someone broke this stuff. But there are containers in here, and what happens is, are these all super containers still? They might be the old super. Oh, they're the old ones. All right. Well, that is a really interesting demo because it was really a bad demo, but it's relevant in this situation. I thought so years ago. So here's what FileMaker does, and I'll just cut to the end on this conversation for you. And you're saying, what is super container? Okay, it's really important. So this is the conversation. So here, if I open up this file is completely self-contained. Everything it needs, including the images, are in here. If I open this file up and I say File, Manage Database, I come over to the container fields and I click on it and I say, let's change the option right here. So the option right there. And I go to Storage. I can say, store the container externally. And I'm just going to say it's open storage for now. So you want to use secure storage if at all possible. Just select that by default. There are some important reasons for that. Obviously, secure means it's encrypted and stuff, which is great. But over and above that, there's some improved reliability items with this. So I say OK with that. I hit OK. I come over here to this one. I would just set these all to external, right? And well, let's set them to external and open without encryption. And so we've got that, we got that. We say OK, it's going to say, hey, you're getting out of field definitions. I need to convert all this stuff. And so it does a transfer. And if it's on the server, this works on the server too. So you could do this actually on a server. And so what you will see now is that it appears to all be working just fine, because there's a document, here's the kitty. And what has happened is that FileMaker has given birth, wherever it's hiding, right here. So this is a folder that now goes with it. All this digital documents are now stored in this folder right here. So they were in here. So if I get info on this, oh, hang on, it still shows it's big. Do I need to make it smaller again? Maybe close it and save it and get an update. Let's see if it changes its size. Aha, look at that. Now that I closed it and it updated its information, now it's less than a megabyte in size. Where did all the images go? Surprise, they're actually in this area over here. And so this is the files that we had. So this is the files we saved in there. The fluffy kitty was not a container we changed. We changed those 3 on the side. So you can mix internally stored containers with externally stored containers. Generally, my impression is that you want one or the other, not kind of mixed up. But here is, so these two things now need to go together. Wherever they go, they must go together. And so if you open this file up, you get this. It obviously is working. I could actually come in here and go File, Manage Database, and we could find the other container, which is called Photo. So that's where that cat would be. I could say Option once again. Storage, store externally, and I could say open storage for the moment and hit OK. It'll say convert it, transfer, we do it. We say OK, we close it. Now if you open up over here, you're going to see now we have the extra cat photo that's sitting over here, right? So pretty cool. So this is the beginnings of digital document storage, because to have digital document storage is about having access to documents. FileMaker does that. The trick is that prior to FileMaker 12, the performance sucked. It was beyond horrible. And the folks at FileMaker didn't really understand this because they didn't address it. They just kept thinking, well, you know, whatever. I don't even know what they were thinking. But the point is that people, half my customers were using digital document storage. They needed this, and they would complain it was so slow. And so what ended up happening is this is really a great story. The guys at 360works, who are really pretty awesome people. So if I go to, close that, if I go to 360works, and they're in Georgia. These are the folks at 360works. And they are probably the only company that actually makes money building plugins and features like that. They make the mirror sync tool, like if you want to sync FileMaker, your desktop, and you want to sync it to the iPad, and the iPad is like offline. So this is, you're going to take this out in the desert with you, and you want to have an offline copy for that. Why is my iPad wet? That would be very bad. Seems to be working. Not sure why it's wet. So anyway, yeah, wet iPad's probably not a good idea. So anyway, the idea with that is that they make all sorts of products. They made a product called Super Container. They still probably have it here. If you go to products here, you could probably still find it. It's still in here. At one point, they were making money hand over fist. They were like printing money down at their company because everyone knew that FileMaker had slow performance and really sucked at digital document management. So these guys cooked up a way of basically, you bought their product and they would actually externally store this for you like this. They would actually do. You had a little super container server you would run on a server like on your file server. This is before FileMaker Cloud. And it would actually do this for you. It would you'd take the images out, it extracts them and saves them in a separate directory. And that way, when you need to back up the files, this backs up really fast because all it is text and data. It's really quick. And then over here are the things that have to be backed up less often. And they're really fat and big, and then so the folder over here is gigabytes and gigabytes and gigabytes, and this is your text over here is very small. So they pioneered this. And then what FileMaker did, somewhere around between 11 and 12, they decided that really people shouldn't have to depend upon a third-party company for critical features, so they decided to roll that feature into the product themselves. So it kind of put this product out of business, but these guys sold it for like 5 or 6 years. They were making a ton of money. I mean, seriously, a ton of money. And I'm happy for them because 85% of my customers went and bought it. It was worth it. It was like $800 or something, and it was like a one-time fee or whatever it was, or you could buy it annually for $500 on a subscription. But it was worth its weight in gold. It was like one of those products that you had to have because without it, you couldn't do digital document management in FileMaker. And because FileMaker would slow down too much. So this solution over here, I have to actually adapt this. It hasn't been adapted yet. It's actually using the old super container. And I think my super container server is shut down, so I have to go and get those images off here and then put them back in into these fields here. So without getting into that too far, hey Richard, how many container files can you store in a folder? Okay, so that's a really great question. In fact, Ben Boom, did I know where you were from? You just asked the question. Feel free to let us know where you're from so I know how to talk to you. So Bim Boom asked the question, how many can you store in there? Okay. Remember I said about the security issue the other day? Okay, so I want you to look at how this is right here. So really what can happen is that you can end up with thousands and thousands of documents in here, right? Like I have my aviation related stuff and I have thousands of documents in these things, right? So if I opened up a database where I was, well, I have like the dead bird database. I guess we could open that one up. This is an interesting database. Let me go. It's a good example. This is actually one of the original ones we created, and I'll explain the dead bird. And I am going to get to Ben Boom's answer here. I need to kind of craft the answer so I could just say, yeah, it's not a problem, but I'm trying to explain to you how to fix it and why it might be a problem and how to make sure it's not a problem. So. So if I go File, I go to Host, I'm going to open up DBW4, which has the Deadbird database in it. If I type DEAD, there's the Deadbird repository. If I do the password here, okay, it's opening up. So what this is, there's 1,481 records in here, and these are all containers, okay? And what the Deadbird repository is, for those of you who have any cats in your life, Bunny knows that we have cats, we have a lot of rescue cats, is what they'll do is they'll go out and kill something, they'll drag it in and drop it on your lap. I had a cat yesterday bring in a dead lizard that was about this big. I've had a cat twice bring in live rattlesnakes. The cat knows how to grab it behind the head, and it walks in bow-legged so it doesn't get bit, and it drops the live rattlesnake. They're baby ones, the most dangerous ones. Drops it in my house, which is really exciting, as you can imagine. And I'm not making this up. Totally serious. So the cats bring these things in. Most time they're dead. Most time they're kind of birds. And the cat's showing you how awesome it is. Well, I have engineers that will frequently do this. They will create something really awesome, and they'll drop it on the boss's desk to show them how cool they are. And I actually like to use them as demos and things, so it's really great. The problem is that you get a collection of dead animals, and you're not quite sure what to do with them, because what do you do when someone randomly gives you a file of something? And so it's kind of like it goes in, you're like, well, let me just put that in a junk drawer. So another name of this file would be like the junk drawer database. And what it is all the random crap, if I can say that, that gets collected that we don't know what to do with, but we know that it needs to be searchable. So what we do is, like, if I go to the very last record in here, we were talking about Dropbox integrations, and we had some Dropbox integrations, and these are zip files. And then I will put the keywords in here, and if there's a paragraph text, we'll put that in here, and we might come up with other key, these are all key items here, the HIPAA or API or IWP, which is not even something that exists anymore. And so this is our Deadbird database internal to the company. Here's a video that someone at Dallas Design, I don't know what this was, a sample about something. Oh, I remember, that was a sample from a while back. Oh, remember the cropper. So we had the cropper file, what to do with the cropper file. I didn't want to lose it because I used it. So I actually created a new record. I typed in all the common search terms I would run into here. I copied a little bit of the conversation from the website. Then I pasted in a screenshot so I would know what it is, because we all recognize the cat, right? We've been using the sample file. So this is it here. Now what I did is I did a screenshot so I would know what it is, and then I actually took the zip file, which includes the actual file, plus the PDF of the conversation from FM Community, and I put those in there. So if I want to see this, I go, hey, so I have this button right here. and I click it, and what it does, exports it and then opens it for me, right? Once again, we've talked about this before. The idea is to export it to either the desktop or a temporary directory and then pop it open. And so this is just a screenshot. It reminds me kind of what it looks like. And I go, oh yeah, I remember that. And then this one down here is so it's going to pop it down here probably somewhere, wherever it goes. And it is, see, in this case, it's saving it into the temp folder. And I probably should have this saved to the desktop. Someone changed this. So the temp folder is something that's on your computer. It's temporary, and you never see it. And if you look where this is buried, it's buried in my hard drive, private, which is really hard to get to anyway. It's like a hidden folder. And then variable folders, then this. So whenever I restart my Mac or Windows computer, they have the same thing. It will go in here and clean all this crap out and delete it. So it's really, when they say temp, it's very temp. But this is what I get out of it. So I get, and then I could drag it. Of course, I could drag it to the desktop, right, and get it there. And so then I would have access to the cropper tool, and then off we go with our cropper solution, right? So those of you who've been watching, remember this. And Dave, if you get questions, make sure that you answer the questions. Yeah, I know. Dead for a company. Yeah, dead bird databases. That would be interesting. You guys are funny. Okay, and so anyway, so that's so this is how this works here. Now the trick is that if I go into my containers in here, I go File, Manage, Database. I can tell you that this database here is gigabytes with an S, because there's videos, there's movies in here, there's all sorts of stuff in here. And if I come in here to the containers, I see that they're set for secure. Why did I set them for secure? Well, I'm going to go ahead and close this file for now. And all that is a very simple file. It's like one table, and I built like 20 containers on there. And you could do it a different way, but it was just simple. I didn't need complicated relationships and stuff. I just wanted to have a container and drag and drop it. The only hard part was to put the script in there to have it auto open. And once you have that script, which is in starting point, you can rip it out of starting point and steal it and put it in your own little document file if you want, or I can send you folks a sample file. But so this is the unencrypted, unsecured. Here's the thing. If you start piling images in and images and images in, it will stick them in one directory. The operating system, Mac or Windows, it doesn't matter, has a limit of how many files you can put in the operating system in a directory. And so if I go into here and I have, you know, it used to be like 2,000, and then when you tried to open it, it would spin, and the Finder couldn't render it. And then the number keeps going up, but there is a practical limit. And so you run into this problem. Well, what you do if you do encrypted, what happens is not only does it encrypt it, it chews it into tiny little bits and spews it a bunch of places. And you'll see what I'm saying. It not only is it encrypted, it's not even encrypted in one file. It's chopped across multiple files in multiple directories, which makes it much more scalable. It doesn't tend to overload the operating system with everything in one directory. So if I go not secured, I go to database. I go to this one here. I'm going to go options. I'm going to set to secure. I come here, options, I set to secure. And if we have questions, David, make sure you interrupt me. Set secure, and I go to the photo and I set options secure. Now you can mix secure and non-secure, but I would just kind of keep them consistent. Now it's going to say, hey, I'm going to have to do some work. I'm going to have to encrypt this stuff and do some stuff, so there might be a little bit of a wait time. Now in this case, it's pretty instant. Now if I close the file, this file hasn't changed at all. The security hasn't changed. This in here, if you open it up, it looks the same except it has a secure folder. And now it's got this mishmash of hierarchical crap that is buried all over the place. And so all these things are spread around and sprayed around. And as you put more things in here, this will grow. But it's breaking things down. And I couldn't tell you what the encryption algorithm is. I'm just telling you that if you stick everything in one directory, eventually you're going to blow up your machine and even your server. And if you do it like this, I've never run out of have it overload because it spreads everything out. That's the thing. You can have thousands and thousands and thousands of images as long as they're spread into different directories or files. Doesn't matter what it is. But if you put them all in one directory, you could have a problem. Does that make sense? So if you have 1,000 or 5,000 cat pictures in one folder, and whatever it's 5,000 or 4,000 or 6,000, depends upon your operating system and your performance of your computer, there is a magical line you'll cross where it will not run well or crash. So that's definitely a thing. It's a real thing. And so by encrypting it, it spreads it out, not in one directory. that makes sense. So that's kind of an important thing. So yeah. So Topcat gave me the official name in the folder. Okay, guess what? Topcat, I've had it crap itself and die at a lot less than 4 billion files. Okay, so he's talking 4.2 billion files. You can't actually do that. You could try, good luck, but don't call me when it blows up, because we do get people who blow up their stuff by doing dumb things, and then they expect us to salvage it, like, you know, paramedics. We're trying to cardiac arrest, and we got the paddles and fix your database. So I would recommend not going. For example, you can put, according to Claris, the theoretical maximum records in a database is 64 quadrillion. Now, I'm not sure what quadrillion is. It sounds really big. And so I wouldn't do that just on general principle, because I think you're asking for trouble. So there is the theoretical maximum, and then there is a, 2.1 billion items. But I can tell you within the last 5, 6, 7 years, we put 5,000, 6,000 items in a directory, and it blew up. And so the Finder couldn't render that with whatever operating system that was. So, so he's saying that just because it can do it doesn't mean it's going to maintain performance. So once again, this is there's the theoretical maximum of things, and then there's the real world. Like, for example, theoretically, you might have a Lamborghini that can do 300 miles an hour, but do you really want to do, I'm not talking kilometers, I'm talking miles per hour. That's about 450 kilometers an hour. Can you really do that? And should you really do that? And should you expect to live? And the answer is maybe not. Yeah, I know. So welcome to the mayhem of that. Okay, so here's the rub with S3. You cannot directly save to S3, at least in any configuration that I've seen with this, because basically, yeah, you probably could if you were really an AWS hacker. I'm not going to get into that conversation. I'm way off in the weeds from Bim Boom, but here's when you put this on FileMaker server as a general rule, or on any server, Mac or Windows. This is going to be on the hard drive, wherever your FileMaker server software is. These will generally be together. Now, you can actually set the containers to be on a different drive, okay? But that would be another virtual drive attached to that machine. I don't know if you can have a virtual drive be an S3 drive on Amazon and then write directly to that. And I don't know if the performance would be fast enough. Because remember, this has to go really damn fast. And by going out to S3, there's an extra layer of security to S3. I just don't know how long that would take. Now, part of this, which is really interesting, we get into containers, and I'm going to bring us back to reality here, is that this is kind of it's kind of asynchronous. And so what I want to do is I'm going to go back to Dead Bird, and I'm going to pop it open, because I need more data to kind of show you how this starts to behave when you load it up. So I'm going to go ahead and load up the Dead Bird. If I can remember the password, I'm going to save it this time. Nope, it didn't like that. That makes me unhappy. There it goes. Oh, of course, I didn't check it. All right, so here's the deal. If I go to list view, now you see, okay, let me just run down here. And it's really going, not much there on that one. See, there's a delay in that. And so what you're going to find on these a lot of times is that it will bring down the text data for you, and then it will go back and fetch the container data. And it's actually pretty optimized. It's pretty quick here. But you could actually scroll down here. Like here's, security guides of FileMaker 13, right? So it's all kind of whatever junk that exists, right? So, so the idea is that you can, the containers will render kind of on a delayed response. And it's not just that. The way the containers, remember I said there were two things that FileMaker really did for you. One was your ability to extract them out of the file. That's one. Two is that when you bring up this image right now, it's bringing up a thumbnail of the image. You could do the performance testing on this, but what it did is that we dragged in a giant cat image on here, right? So the image was this right here. Okay, this is the image. It's huge. Now, the thing that FileMaker used to do also is that if you wanted to see the cat image here, it would send you the entire image, and then your copy of FileMaker would stuff it down into that little spot. Does that make sense? So if I flip to the next record, say create another record, and I had another photo in there, then it would send me down the entire photo, megabytes and megabytes. And if it was a movie, it would send you gigabytes. And so what you're doing is you're here trying to flip through records, and you can't flip through the records because it's waiting to download all this stuff. And it was a real wrestling contest at one point with FileMaker, trying to get them to really understand that this was kind of important, is that if we're flipping through records and we want to flip fast, say I'm looking for something and I'm over here looking at stuff, I don't want to have to wait for all these things to render in glorious high definition. And what happens is that FileMaker, especially on the Mac, to some degree on the Windows, but what it does, it makes a call to the operating system and it creates a thumbnail for you automatically. So this is not the full image. This cat picture over here is not the full image. The operating system made a thumbnail for you. And so as it's sending it to you, it doesn't make you wait for it. It gives you the text data, but then the container data, which will already be smaller because it's thumbnails, will come down as asynchronous. Basically, it loads it kind of separately. Does that make sense? So it loads all the text data on one whack. So if you're on a list view over here, if I jump here to the middle of the database somewhere like this, instantly FileMaker loaded the top from this spot is where my record is down here. It loaded the previous 25 to 50, and these numbers change from release to release, but it loaded the previous 25, 50 records and approximately the next 25 to 50 records of the text. And so it brings all that text down. And if it was paragraphs and paragraphs, it would have been longer. And so it brings the text down. Then it says, oh, and while you're at it, go get on a second pass. So it shows me the first data. It starts to render it. And then FileMaker Pro, in this case, goes back to the server and says, get me the thumbnails for these things. And so you're getting thumbnails. Now, this isn't a thumbnail here of a movie. That's too bad. And this is a PDF here. It says PDF, but it's not really a thumbnail. If you're on the Mac and you input stuff, the FileMaker will attempt to give you a thumbnail with a broader range of items that can make thumbnails out of, right? So Windows will do JPEG, and I can't remember all the exact items it will do, but it's a subset less than normally what the Mac will do. And so you'll get thumbnails of other items here. And so what happens is that in order to see the full size of this thing, you have to kind of do the export. So if I view this right here, this is an Amazon presentation on whatever. I have a little note down here right below, and I actually say how big it is, and it's 325 megs, which is really big. I'd prefer not to grab that one if I didn't have to. And so like performing EC2 backup checks, here's a movie here, 51 megabytes. So I can try this, and what you would normally do if you didn't have a script, you click on it, you right click. See, now it's spinning. It's waiting. So now it's trying to transfer that data. And it's going to say, would you like to export that? Question, Stack Overflow. Are there any issues?
Yeah, we have a couple questions.
Yeah, let's go and do the questions for right now.
Cool. Yeah, the one you were just getting through is, are there any issues when converting to secure containers on FM file on a server? How about backups after during conversion?
No, backups, when you run backups, it grabs the associated containers with the file that's backing up. So normally with FileMaker Server, you can either say back up all the files or back up certain files. And if it backs up a file, it's going to back up the FMP12 file, and it's going to back up any containers that are attached to that. So it keeps track of that. So it's totally, I don't want to say idiot proof, but I like it. I don't have to think about it. I just know that when it does a backup, it's really doing a backup, and it's backing up the images and movies too. But there's some other things they do to make the performance run faster there. So it kind of did its thing, and then stopped. Let me go right. Okay, I right click. I say export field contents, and it says, hey, you want to export it? That's great. It's 56 megs, and so it kicks it out here to the desktop somewhere. So here's the video that it pops out. And so people say, well, can't we also do a can't you have it like be embedded in Play? And this is really a performance conversation right here, a big one. A really, really big one. Yeah, okay, so that's a really good question. Let me do the, all right, damn it. All right, so Nathan Schneider just derailed my brain. It's his fault. He's a bad person. So he's asking about, it generates these thumbnails. What happens with the thumbnails And so if you go File and you go Manage and you go over to Containers, this is one of those areas that most people don't visit too often. You have the option to see the base directory of the containers. It's on a server. I can't really change that, but I can go to Thumbnails. I can say that they're permanently stored, which means they're somewhere buried on the computer, on the FileMaker server, or they're temporarily stored, probably. You know, and I'd have to go back and get clarification, but the point is it doesn't have to re-render them, right, is the whole idea. If they're temporary, then they go away, and then if you go back to them, they will regenerate again. So the server generates the thumbnails for you, which is really, well, as a general rule, the server generates the thumbnails for you. There are times where the client will do it instead, but the point is that when you're asking for that list view over here, you're asking for the list view, you're getting the thumbnails, you're not getting the full container. Now, let's talk about this one. How big is this one here? That one's really big. We need something a little bit smaller. So what I've got is that this database is optimized for performance. This database is on the cloud on Amazon, and I'm broadcasting, and data bits are flying everywhere. And so the idea is that this is as optimized and as fast as possible. If I go to layout mode, and I go over here to the container, there are a couple container options that you can play with. And I have to find out where they're under the data over here, the data tab. And what you can do is down here at the bottom, it's really hard to see this. I don't know what can't remember the zoom on this thing, or I'm probably likely to blow up the computer if I hit the wrong button. No, see, it's zooming that. That isn't working. But down here it says images, and I have them all set for images, or I have interactive. And interactive is interesting, because if I change this to interactive right here, and then I go back to browse mode, what's going to happen is that, depending upon the situation, it's going to attempt, I'm assuming it's going to attempt to do that, unless it's a file type it doesn't know how to interact with. Did I save that there? Interactive. That's interesting. I think I probably have to put a new one. These might be, it also gets into how you, okay, so see that right there? So that was a PDF, but we set it to interactive. So if you come over here, you can actually interact with this PDF. Now, in order for that to work, when you turn on interactivity, you should use it very selectively and only if you really want it. Because what happens is that, remember, the whole idea about thumbnails is it sends you down a lightweight representation, or it sends you just the icon of the item. You don't need the whole thing, because the thumbnail generally tells you what it's going to look like. Like, for example, this big honking kitty over here, and then see, that's another thumbnail. So it actually generated two thumbnails here. You pretty much know that if I export this big kitty, it's going to be a big kitty, right? You kind of know what it is. This one here, it doesn't really have a screen frame from the item. So it's kind of it's an icon, it's high performance, it doesn't really tell you what it looks like. This right here is a PDF. It shows me what a thumbnail of the first page of the PDF. It would also do that on Word files if you're on a Mac, which is kind of cool. But the idea is that it's high performance. If I come over here and I turn on that interactivity, then instead of you getting the thumbnail, it sends you the whole file, baby. And so this one was only 1.6 megs. And here's 5.8. We're waiting. Oh, that one came down pretty quick. So there's another one, and 1.9, and then it's pretty small. There's 24 megs right here, but it's a FP7 file. It will never activate, if that makes sense. So if I go back to list view, now on this screen it's set to not be interactive. So the interactive and non-interactive is on the object, specifically on that layout. It's not a field level selection. Does that make sense? So I could have it over here and be really light, and then I can come over here to where there's probably a movie somewhere. Like here's a movie right here. And so I'm going to click on this movie. We'll see if it plays it or not, or if it brings it up, or oh my gosh, it's 760 megs. So that was a really dangerous one. So let me create a new record and put a new movie in here. I have documents in here. I do have the Alien movie here. I'm going to put this in here. And it's going to spin, and it's going to spin, and now it's processing, and that's uploading it to the server. So my general recommendation is don't stick movies in FileMaker, just because you know, there's better applications for managing video than FileMaker. If you had little clips, I guess that would be okay. Obviously, PDFs are great. Scans of contracts is great. They're like a meg, 2 meg, 20 megs, 50 megs. But when you start talking about hundreds of megabytes or gigs of video, why, right? So there's other conversations going on here. David, you want to get caught up on questions? Elliot is asking about OCR. Yeah, we're not really talking about OCR today too much. We have an OCR demo. Okay, so for OCR, we have a free demo that you can get to. If you go to, okay, so over here, by the way, notice it now is decided to play. So as I was sitting here interacting with FileMaker, it shoved 82 megabytes through the network up my nose. And if I was in a hurry and flipping records, then it would try to shove that to me, and then it would try to stop it, and then start it and stop it, and then suddenly you'd be flipping through things, and it would be painful. And so now, of course, I can.
The emergency disrupt system is now activated.
Right, so now you have this interactive video that's in here. So it will do it, but it's going to shove the whole thing down the pipe to you, which I think is generally a bad idea. What I would do is, if you really like that, you would probably have this set over here as image only, non-interactive. And then what you would do is that if you really, normally what I do is that if I want to interactivate, if I want to interact with it, I hit the export button, it kicks it to the desktop, right? And then I can open it from there and then interact with it in Word or whatever, right? Otherwise, it tries to live in that little window, right? And I would just rather kick it to the desktop, which it's attempting to do here, I guess. It's stuck. It's attempting. It's spinning. So once again, you know, throwing 82 megabytes around is not overly performant. So a lot of people are talking about yeah, the Tesseract demo, we got rid of Nathan James because there is an basically an essential OCR. Now I'm stuck here spinning because I'm waiting for this thing. You know, once again, why you probably shouldn't do video, right, on a file. If I go to here, if I go to FM, let's go to FM starting point right here. If you go to Marketplace right here, you can download, this is obviously all sorts of free things in here. This is actually a paid thing. If you come down here to AWS demo, this is 3 demo files that we created, one of which is OCR, and it actually does work. And so there's a video that kind of talks about it, and you don't have to buy a plugin for it because it's an AWS service. Now, strictly speaking, you should have your own AWS service. This one uses ours a little bit, and I put some money into it. Because, you know, doing an OCR is like a half a penny or something. And every day people are playing with it on the internet, so I see my account's like $98, then $97.50, and $97.25, and then $96. So it does slowly drain down. But this is what we use for OCR right now. It basically uploads the image to Amazon, and then you get the text back. This is a voice to text kind of similar sort of thing. And then this is a dynamic management upload download to S3 storage. Totally different than the topic today. I don't know how we got on the OCR conversation, but I'm going to answer it. So this is all built in right here. I use the Scribe plugin from 360 is really useful if you have a Word file and like a very complex contract. Because if you have a very complex contract, it's really hard to manage that in layout mode in FileMaker. See, it's still spinning here, so I'm stoked. This is why we, you know. So it's hard to put a complex contract like an insurance contract or something in the FileMaker because FileMaker layouts are limited to about 10 pages, and having them slide up and down, do all that. So now it's finally done, right? So why I don't manage video with FileMaker, just because it's just too unwieldy, and doing it inline, doing it, you know, interactive in here is hard. But having it as an icon, it's easy. It's just so. So the Scribe demo is good for substituting in. So imagine I don't have the video, have a sample file here, but imagine you have a database and you're writing a contract for a customer. Now, if the contract's simple, like I have time and material agreements, things like that, pretty simple, they come out of a FileMaker layout. But if you have a complex document with lots of funny things as in Word, what we actually have a customer where we set it up where they had the Word file in the container it exports it to the desktop. Then we tell the scribe plugin to take data elements out of the database and do a substitution into the Word file. So it actually opens it up in Word, or actually scribe opens it up, injects the changes, then saves it, and then it pops it open in Word, and so you have a Word file with live data changes from FileMaker, which is really cool. So that is the OCR demo. Not the OCR demo, but that's the basically what Scribe is best known for, I think. And we do recommend to use it. So questions?
Yeah, we have one that asks about the containers. That says, so do file references actually get stored in the container?
So in what we are showing you here, there is a file reference in the container, but you don't see it because it handles it for you automatically. There's no what I've shown you here is as complicated as it gets with this stuff. FileMaker did deprecate a feature in. Okay, I'm going to show this to you, and then everyone here has to promise never to do this in real life, because then I will disown you and tell you you're bad people. So long ago, before there was these containers with remote storage, we call them remote containers. This is kind of the slang term for this, remote containers, what engineering calls it at FileMaker. It's really a container with external storage. We've seen this. FileMaker has a feature, a really old feature. I'm going to call it photo of cat 2, okay? And I'm going to call it a container, okay? And I'm going to create this right here. And so here's the photo of the cat 2. So what I'm going to do here is then I'm going to go to browse mode. And by default, it's an internal container. And what I want to do is I need another cat picture. So cat photo. I need a kitty photo. Give me a photo really quick. There's a cat. There's a cat. There's a cat. Not a very big cat. It's fine. All right. So what happens is that you can actually come over here to this container and right-click it and actually say insert a picture or insert a file. Okay. And what you can do is you can actually, so the cat is called unknown on the desktop. So there's the cat. And you can say store a reference only to the file. So I'm not sure if you're referring to this, but I want to address this. Okay. That checkbox has been removed from FileMaker 19. It's been deprecated. Thank God. Okay, because what happens is people do this right here. They're like, I want external containers, so I'm going to store an external reference. Okay, that's not external container. Okay, what that is that image is on your hard drive somewhere, and this now has a path to go find it on your hard drive. Now, I understand some of you like to use local files. I get that. It's totally fine. But really the benefit to FileMaker is a collaborative community, kind of your team is working together. So if you post a photo here of Fluffy Kitty, the other people should see the Fluffy Kitty too. In this situation, when this is hosted and shared, they're not going to see anything. They're going to see broken image. You know why? Because that image is stored on your hard drive and no one else has access to your hard drive. And so when you put that in there, it put a text reference to it, you know, hard drive, then Richard Carlton's desktop, blah, blah, blah. No one else has access to that. And so by you using this, you automatically screw yourself over. It's just one of those like really bad check boxes. I've been complaining about this checkbox for 15 years. They finally got rid of it. I'm thrilled because now people won't do that, because what happens is that you load it in there. Here's a sequence of events. So say John Pollard is working with Nathan James, working with Scale 102 and Bim Boom, and John Pollard has a picture of a coyote or a kangaroo or something from Australia, maybe a black widow spider that's eating a kangaroo because they have really bad spiders in Australia, and so he puts a picture on there, and they're using a shared solution. It's on the server, and then Nathan James looks at it and goes, "Hey, it says broken image over here," and then John Pollard looks at it and goes, "You're high as a kite. You've been drinking, because it works just fine on my computer." The image works just fine on the computer of the person who put it in there because they can see the file that's still sitting on their hard drive over here. No one else can see it. So that's what that is. Don't use it ever. So I'm going to go back up. Must go to a meeting. So Ron is out of here. Sorry about that, Ron. What time is it? Oh, shoot. We're running late. I'm so sorry, everyone. I just accessed FileMaker 7 Windows through the server, and I'm running problems trying to make a PDF interactive. I keep getting security issues. Yeah, you're going to need to check FileMaker on I'm a Mac user, but some of my folks are Windows users. About half our customers are Windows users. As a result, I know that there's some, with PDFs, it depends on what PDF reader you have installed and what the security is set for on that. Miles Debsky has run into this recently again. He's not here right now. If you want to have Miles, if you want to copy and paste that to Miles, see if he can respond to that, David, would be good. I'll try to make sure we bring that back tomorrow, or have someone here from Windows that can talk about that, hopefully. I've always had a problem with interactive containers. When the container is set to interactive content, every time the record loads, the content plays, the PDF will run, even if it turned off. There is a feature over here. I didn't really mention it. If you look over here and play with it, if you have a file here and you set it to be interactive, you can also have it play automatically, which means that the video starts playing without you doing anything, right? So, I mean, I guess you can turn that on. It's fine over here. Then if you flip to this record over here, I don't know if it's in there or not, but it would automatically play that. So yeah, once again, I turn that stuff off because I don't want to have FileMaker choking under performance because it's trying to chew on. It has to load the video player. So understand that when it plays it, it just doesn't magically play it. There's this code in the computer, which is the player, MP3 player, video player, PDF renderer, whatever it is. That's what's tripping the security on the PDF side on Windows. It has to load the player through all the security, which takes time and delays. And then it has to actually load all the content, the whole file, the whole stinking thing. And so, not good. I think with videos, if it's smart, the server sometimes will try to stream it to you, so you start getting this video stream. But that has to synchronize, and then So if you want to save yourself pain, agony, turn it off, don't use it. There's plenty of cool things you can do with FileMaker to save time. If you want the document, just kick it to the desktop, okay? And then, or in the hidden folder, if you want a temporary folder and have it run that way. So tomorrow, Candido Thomas, have you ever talked about saving containers in an extra folder of the server in order to save the size of backups? Yeah, there are options there with the containers on the server. Once again, maybe we could bring Jacob in here briefly tomorrow to talk about that. But the short version of the conversation is that there are additional options to back up the containers. Normally, if you just say the server to back it up, it just backs it up and it does the whole thing. You can back up the containers less often if you want. I normally don't go to the hassle of doing that myself because I buy big enough external drives. That's not a problem. But then there's other technical things to get in there, and that's a whole nother conversation. I'm trying to wrap this up. What we are going to do tomorrow is continue the same conversation. We're going to talk about the same conversation as it applies to iOS. I guess we could try WebDirect a little bit, but I'm not a big fan of WebDirect. But we're going to talk about the containers over here because these things, it has the insert from device, which is kind of neat. So there's additional containery kind of things that go on over here on the iOS device. But basically it operates the same way. Either it's interactive or it's not interactive. And if you have it not being interactive, you save all sorts of pain and agony waiting for stuff to load. So Stephen Engler did ask a question. HBH, glad I got that question answered for you. That was awesome. Backing up my nightly backups, FileMaker server time. He has 1.5 million records, 800 gigabytes of documents. See, that's really not surprising. I mean, 800 gigs is a lot of documents. Storage keeps growing by about 10% per day. Okay, so wait, I'm gonna. Stephen, I know you probably didn't mean this question this way, but I'm going to read this. When I'm backing up my nightly automatic FileMaker server backup time of 1.5 million records / 800 gigabytes of document storage keeps growing. So he's saying that the time keeps, not the storage, but the time keeps growing about 10% per day. Any ideas? Is your database getting bigger 10% a day? I'm assuming that you're a fairly smart person, and the answer to that is not growing 10% a day. So you're wondering why the backups are slowing down 10% a day. If it's not growing, then you're dealing with a hardware issue there, where you've got a SSD that's wearing out, or some other stuff like that. Because the one thing about it, if you run SSDs on a local server, depending upon the drive and stuff, you can wear those things out because you're. I mean, the way solid state drives work is they only can read and write a bit every so often, and you can only write that bit so many times, on, off, on, off, on, off. It's, you know, and so eventually that bit wears out, and so that starts to slow the device down as it starts unallocating bits and things. And so I would look at the hardware on that to do some performance testing to see how the drives are doing. You can run a performance test to test you like the sheer speed of the drive. I don't know if I have it on here. On the Mac, we use a free product called Black Magic of all things. I'll put it on here for tomorrow. But it runs against the drives and tells you, like if you know the drive is an SSD and you know that the bus on the computer should be about 400 gigs a second or 100 gigs, whatever the number is, and you watch it and it seems consistent, and then next week you run it and it's about the same, then you know you're okay. But if you run that and things start slowing down, then you know the drive's either getting full, in which case it will slow down as it tries to pack everything in, or it will, or you have a degradation of the hardware. On the Mac, for the degradation of hardware, we use a product called Drive DX. I'll bring that up at some point. And it actually continuously queries the drives to make sure they're reporting back that they're okay. So, okay, so iMog says hi. He just surfaced. That's great. And then, like I said, we're landing and finishing this up. Steve gave a clarification. He thinks it's a VM server on the cloud somewhere. The other thing to keep in mind with virtual servers, and I know we've had this problem with Amazon before. Everything will be running fine, then you'll have this like weird slowness where things are unresponsive. Keep in mind, Amazon's supposed to like, and I don't know how this is lately, but I don't know, a couple, 2-3 years ago, there would be you'd run into a situation where someone else on the server was really overusing the hell out of the server, right, on their virtual slice. And because they're sucking all the power over there on their slice, even though they're supposed to be limited, it could negatively affect other virtual servers, that slices of servers that are on that box of hardware. And so by spinning down the instance and spinning it up again on Amazon, so not restarting the Windows, but you actually go to the Amazon control, you spin down the instance, then you spin it back up. Amazon recreates it somewhere else in the data center almost always. It would never go back to the same machine. And so it finds another machine somewhere, you spin it back up, it's fine. I don't know if you have that as an option because, yeah, I mean, it depends on what kind of VM software you're using and if it's Amazon or who you're using. But spinning it down and then like give it 15, like if you spin it down and immediately spin it up, it'll probably be on the same machine. But if you like let it sit for 30 minutes or an hour or something, whatever the time is, and then you spin it back up, it will typically recreate the server on a different drive or create your virtual server on a different piece of hardware somewhere else. And then that would be a good test to see if the speed goes up or down that way. Okay, because there's no really option on Amazon to say move my server, right? Like move it, I don't like where I'm at, move it to some other place. Because as far as Amazon is concerned, you buy that slice, it guarantees the performance of that slice mostly, right? Okay, cool. All right, well, we largely have that. If you have questions today about today, we went right past the time. And I didn't know it because it was really a good conversation. We're going to kind of clean up this conversation tomorrow. We'll recap some items, but tomorrow is part 2 of this conversation. I do go to that script a little bit, make sure that Bunny actually gets her training, finally, hopefully. And then we'll talk about a little bit of PDF interaction with, or digital document container interaction on the iPad with iOS, FileMaker Go. And then we'll go down that road. If you have questions that aren't answered today and you really want to get them asked, Ed's up here. I do want to answer Ed's question real quick because it's up here and I kind of missed it. When you run an export command, you can ask the computer for the path name to the person's desktop. That is a get function in FileMaker. If you go up under here and you open a file or something like that, I don't know, we can bring it up tomorrow, but you can actually, there's a get function that says get desktop path, get documents path, and if you run it on the person's computer, it will give you a path name. You don't even know what it is. It just substitutes it in as part of the export. So that's why it's not hard coded. I'm running a get function on here in when we run that. Either you can get a temporary documents directory, get the current desktop. That's all part of FileMaker. It's built in the product, so it's pretty cool. Those are get functions, so definitely feel free to use those. Yeah, and Andre's talking about SSDs and stuff, and the SSD fill capacity varies. I try not to make my SSDs more full than about 60%. So if you're running SSD technology, and it depends upon the tech, because there's tech from 3 years ago, then there's newer tech, and it's like less sensitive to that. But if you fill up a hard drive, like really fill it up, it's going to struggle. So you might want to, once again, make sure your drive, I mentioned if your drive, even a spinning drive, if you really fill it up, it will slow down and stop. So that might be a consideration. So. All right, everyone. I appreciate it. I will see you tomorrow let's see, shoot, it's an hour and 15 minutes. I'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock Pacific time for Friday. We'll be cleaning up the final parts of this. Reminder real quick for those of you who missed this, don't forget to do a review for us if you have a chance. It helps us out and tells Claris that you are watching the videos and you like them. You don't have to do it every day, but for those of you here all the time like Elzo and stuff, definitely go here, use your Google login if you have one, and just put a little comment about stuff. That would be really appreciated. Very helpful. All right, that's it for today. Thanks, everyone.
And the guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected. The quarterback, great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap, stands in, throws it left for Amendola, reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10, rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.